Welcome, adventurers! I'm your host, R.R. Slugger. We are about to embark on the journey of a lifetime. This is the Orient Expedition. Brevity is not a primary goal of a retrospective series like this, but if I had to summarize our upcoming adventure, I would do so as follows. Orient Expedition not only featured an impressive 15 retail sets, but also a heavy web presence ahead of its time and a novel integrated board game, and we're going to take a look at it all. Released in 2003, the Orient Expedition marks the fourth and seemingly final quest of the legendary Johnny Thunder. As always, Johnny is aided by his two compatriots, Miss Pippin Reed and Dr. Kilroy. Just like the other adventurers' sub-themes, Orient Expedition is also home to many varied supporting characters, but we'll get to them in due time. For now, let's look at what makes the Orient Expedition so unique, as well as what led to its creation. Throughout this series, we'll be traveling across the Eastern world on our quest to find the Golden Dragon, a fabled treasure of the illustrious Marco Polo. If we compare the previous adventurers' sub-themes to this one, the Orient Expedition is the only series with an emphasis on globe-trotting. I find that this has a significant impact on the importance of the adventure and adds a bittersweet sense of finality to the whole affair. The fact that the LEGO Group was more specific than ever as to the location of these ventures makes the theme feel all the more cinematic. Original design documents for the Orient Expedition can be traced all the way back to October 2000, within a proposed sequel to LEGO Island 2 of all things. Making significant stops within Arabia, India, Tibet, and China, game protagonist Pepperoni was to attempt to stop the Brickster from stealing all of LEGO Island, I think. I'm still a little unclear on that, but what is important is noting that nearly all of the locations listed here later became significant sites within the Orient Expedition. While we would see India, Tibet, and China featured in the final series release, Arabia was notably absent. This is just speculation on my part, but I think it's plausible to assume that because of certain world events that took place in this era, Arabia was cut from the list of destinations. Prototype pieces seem to suggest that sets designed to have an Arabian setting were at least on the table at one point, but alas. While it's unfortunate we never got to see Johnny and the gang in Arabia, what we did receive here is something special. Of all the adventurer sets, Orient Expedition just might be the most well-rounded series featuring this classic crew. That's not to say that Orient Expedition eclipses the previous sub-themes in all areas. It's come to be my opinion that there is no truly best adventurers wave. That is, a series that does everything better than its predecessors and or successors. While I do believe that this sub-theme is an incredibly strong outing for Johnny and the gang, if you're looking for a retrospective series that is devoid of criticism, you'll have to look elsewhere. There are plenty of things Orient Expedition gets wrong, and, well, I guess let's get into it now. Alright, I think it's important for everyone to understand that this retrospective series just doesn't happen without the following disclaimer. When looking at Orient Expedition, we have to consider two key words: culture and context. Unlike every other LEGO theme I've discussed in depth so far on this channel, Orient Expedition depicts real cultures from Earth, and in doing so, opens itself up to a whole unique form of criticism otherwise avoided. To be frank, it's relatively easy to decry any details a set designer from Europe got wrong about an Asian cultural element included in their set. And don't worry, we will get to that. But for a moment, consider this alternative. Rather than representing real cultures from Earth, the design team could have simply fabricated their own fictional tribes of people in order to play it safe. Or more safe. I believe this would have greatly diminished the value of Orient Expedition. While not executed perfectly, it seems clear to me that part of the mission statement here was to expose adventurous builders to various cultures across the globe, perhaps to spark interest and intrigue into the subjects of geography or history. Speaking from experience, this definitely had an impact on me. As a young slug, I was totally transfixed by the culture of India, and I spent many hours reading about the country's people and history. I believe the Orient expedition is partially responsible for piquing my curiosity in a corner of the globe I had never visited before. Had this design team chosen to invent a vague, fictitious society for this toy line instead, I think this positive influence would have been lost. On the opposite side of things, the colonialism behind adventurers bleeds through here, perhaps now more than ever. Describing the plunder of another culture's temples and tombs as an adventure cannot be hand-waved away by simply stating it belongs in a museum. While Orient Expedition was certainly not the first, nor the last time we would see this glorification of colonialism within Western media, I think it does need to be acknowledged up front before we dive into things. There's no such thing as a perfect disclaimer. While what I've said may work for some, it may also serve to alienate others who land on either side of the spectrum. Some folks may take umbrage with me giving the set designers a bit of a pass and not taking them to task on every little detail. Others might think this whole section of the video is ridiculous or unnecessary. I just want to acknowledge that these toys are not perfect examples of the cultures they attempt to represent, while at the same time I want to reaffirm that they are only toys at the end of the day. I think there is a place for a retrospective series like this that identifies the strengths and weaknesses of a classic LEGO theme, avoiding the blind devotion or derision that looking through a lens to the past can often create. I will try my best to sing both the praises of the theme as well as point out any significant historical inaccuracies as I spot them. However, I'm from this part of the globe, and the Orient Expedition takes place here, and here. I'm simply not an expert on these regions, and evidently no one working at LEGO in the early 2000s was either. I'm not an arbiter of history or culture, but more than anything, I'm excited to embark on this journey with a goal to learn, and hopefully we can do that together. Over the next dozen or so episodes, we will be diving into every set that was included in the Orient Expedition theme. Instead of doling them out in order of set number like I did with Rock Raiders, or from small to large like I did with Time Cruisers, we will be braving this journey just like the gang did. Starting in India, we will follow in the footsteps of Johnny Thunder, traveling to each region in search of Marco Polo's lost treasures. At every stop, we will take an in-depth look at the builds and minifigures included, discuss relevant board game or website integration, and acknowledge any historical or cultural touchstones related to the sets in question. I am beyond excited to kick things off. Months of research, planning, and building have gone into this, so I hope you enjoy the journey as much as I have. Our first excursion together will take us into the skies and rivers of India. I hope to see you there. I've been your host, R.R. Slugger, and I'll see you next time for another adventure.